The registration and hotel reservations are now open for the TACCM conference in Austin in June. So if you want to go ahead and register, please visit taccm.org, and all the conference information that is available at the moment will be up there, along with the links to register and book with the Courtyard Hotel. So I encourage you to do that. And you should have received an update email for January. So go ahead and give that a browse when you can. We do have some, I believe we still have some open positions on the board. So if anybody's interested in that, please reach out to us. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started, I think. So I wanted to introduce David White. He is the manager for web analytics and optimization here at San Jacinto College. And he's going to be presenting today about UTM parameters. And David has over 15 years of experience in higher education and website development, 25 years of experience. So he's a great resource, and we're happy to have him today to discuss this topic. So with that, David, go ahead and take it away.
Oh, you just got muted, David.
So sorry.
There you go.
I muted because Mary is like right behind me. I was getting feedback. Can everybody see my screen okay? Understanding the basics of UTM parameters? Awesome. Yep. Good deal. Well, thank you all so much for having me. Let me get my thing going here. All right, thanks so much for having me. So I'm looking around the room and I'm seeing a lot of familiar faces and new faces, and I want to thank TACCM and thank everybody for joining this Lunch and Learn for my little presentation. You know, I feel so special. I mean, I got to tell you too, right off the bat, that TACCM has been such a great organization in my career. You know, I've learned a lot through TACCM Lunch and Learns and through the conferences over the years, and I've made so many connections over the years that it's just been so valuable to me. And I think we can all, especially people that have been part of TACCM for several years, we can all attest to that. So thank you very much for having me. So today we're going to learn about understanding the basics of UTM parameters. And let me give you a little bit of information about myself. So again, my name is David White. I'm the Web Analytics and Optimization Manager for San Jacinto College. We're down in Pasadena, close to Houston. I have been doing websites since 1997. At the time, I was living in Austin during what we called the .com boom, and I definitely wanted to be a part of that action. And this was a brand new thing, websites. You know, everybody was going to have a .com at the time. And by the time that I got my webmaster certification through the University of Texas professional development courses, was when we saw the .com bust. So I still was passionate about building websites, and I winded up doing websites for small businesses and doing websites for, strangely enough, there's a long story behind it, but doing the websites for a bunch of attorneys in Austin and law firms. That was kind of my niche. In 2004, moved up to Amarillo, Texas, and started working for Amarillo College in their marketing department in a brand new position for a front-end website developer. We had a back-end website developer that worked in IT, and so we worked together. So I've kind of grown up through, you know, the stages of website development. I've seen all the different technologies that websites use. I've experienced user behaviors and expectations for websites, and this is really an exciting field because it's ever changing. You know, things that we're doing on the website now, we weren't even doing 5 years ago. So yes, I've got 25 years of experience in it, 25 years-ish experience in it. Am I expert at it? No, I don't think anybody in web development and design would ever be an expert, because you always have about that, you know, 5 years experience, and then you start all over, right? So back to our presentation. So what is a UTM parameter? Well, let's first define what that UTM acronym is. So the acronym is Urchin Traffic Monitor. It was developed by Urchin Software in about, I want to say like late 90s, 1997, 1998, because that's when I was doing websites. And this was pre-Google, right? And the ability to be able to see what people were clicking on to come to your website using this UTM parameters of the Urchin Traffic Monitor was a brand new thing, and we're used to it now, but back then it was a brand new thing, and it was a wonderful moment. Urchin software was purchased by Google in 2005, but that term is stuck, so we still use UTM parameters in that vocabulary. So really, you can say that Urchin software and Urchin Traffic Monitor was kind of the grandfather of Google and Google Analytics. Or I would say Google Analytics. So it's kind of a cool thing just to know what that all stands for. UTM parameters are really simple, straightforward, and a reliable way to track traffic from different sources. Now, since they are very simple, things can, but you have a lot of options, and things can get a little hairy, especially when you have multiple people on your team creating UTMs, URLs. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. I kind of talk about best practices for UTMs as well. So these parameters are tags that are added to a URL. Now, when somebody clicks on that URL that you provide with the UTM parameters added, those tags are sent back to Google Analytics for tracking. So it's gathering all that data and they're sending it back to Google Analytics for tracking. Now, by adding UTMs, you can understand how your visitors interact with your website and easily identify which specific ad, campaign, or channel is yielding the best results. This can be particularly useful, especially, let's say if there are multiple ways to access your online assets and you're trying to identify which channels to focus on. So let me show you what a URL looks like that has the UTM parameters included. So we have that root URL, or the original URL, for this example, sanjak.edu. Then you have a question mark. And then anything after the question mark is the UTM parameters. And then we've got these tags, source, medium, and campaign. So our source is newsletter, our medium is banner, our campaign is spring. That is the data that gets pushed back to Google Analytics that we can see in our Google Analytics reporting. All right. So I think there are 7 parameters that are already set up in Google Analytics. You can do your custom parameters inside of Google Analytics. That's outside the scope of this presentation. I wanted to just give you the basic stuff first, because that is a process. You kind of have to, when you do create your custom parameters, you have to go into Google Analytics and define those custom parameters. So basically, so Google knows what to do with those. So your parameters, let's start off with the basic ones. The first one is source. The source parameter is required. This one is used to show which site the visitors are coming from, for example, like a Google or a newsletter. The next one is your medium. This is also required, and it's used to show which marketing channels are bringing the visitor to your site. For examples would include, but are not limited to, email, social, cost per click. For example, CPC, banner, or email. The next one would be campaign. This is used to identify which campaign the promotion is associated with, product, promo code, slogan. Like for us, we'll use spring semester, fall semester. One of the campaign, this campaign is required, or the campaign ID is required. We'll talk about the ID in a second. The campaign ID is required for GA4 when you have it tied to your Google AdWords or ad campaigns. So for me, most of the time, I'm just including the campaign parameter. Our advertisers that we work with will probably be using the campaign ID, but those can be used together. You just have to have one or the other. So the ones that are required are your source parameter, your medium parameter, and or the campaign or the ID. Okay. The next one is term. That's used to manually identify keywords that you're targeting with your campaign. Remember, all this data is being pushed to Google Analytics. So when it comes to like the term parameter, just put whatever words in that term parameter to identify the keywords that you're targeting for that campaign. And then you have content parameter. A content parameter is used to identify the exact element on your ad or promotion that was clicked. This is often used for optimization purposes and is used to differentiate ads. I can give you an example of where I used this content parameter when I was working at Blinn Community College, or Blinn College, sorry. That's a no-no when you say Blinn Community College at Blinn. But we were running an ad promoting the free application. So it's free anyway, but we were promoting the free application. And we started running ads using the word free application, and we weren't getting hits like we thought we would. So we were I wanted to kind of dissect it to see where and why we weren't getting clicks that we were expecting. So I ran a different ad with the words no fee, and another ad with the word it was no fee, free, and no cost. And I used that content as one of the parameters in the URL whenever the person clicked on that ad. And we did A/B testing and found out that what people liked was no fee. So we got rid of that free verbiage in our original ad and went with no fee. And in fact, today you can go to the Blinn homepage and you'll see a big banner that says no fee application, because we know that works better. All right. And then this is the ID parameter. And again, this is required if in GA4 if you're also using Google Ads. So this is going to import your costs, your clicks, and your impressions. You have to have either or, remember, the campaign or the ID as part of the URL parameters. Okay. So why are UTM parameters important? So using a combination of parameter tags can help your team start to develop valuable insights about which promotional efforts are bringing you the most traffic to your site. And this information, or this type of information, in turn allows you to gauge which types of campaigns are working and which may not be performing as expected. Even the ad type, even like that graphic that I was sharing with you about with Blinn College, we wanted to use the correct ad that was screaming, click me, by saying no fee. But anyway, so it gives you lots of information. Okay, let's look at the tools. So what types of tools can help build and track these UTM parameters? Well, to build them, you're going to use the UTM builder. Some CMS systems already have a UTM builder built in. Your ad agencies that are working with you, they might have their own UTM builders built in. But you can just go to Google and Google UTM builder, and it will show you a link for Google Analytics UTM builder. That's the one that I use the most. I just have a bookmark in my browser to it, and I use it all the time. To track that information, of course, we would use Google Analytics. So here is the view for the campaign builder. I would have typed in the URL for you, but it's like ga-dev-blah, blah, blah. Just do a Google search for it. Do a Google search for Google Analytics campaign URL builder. It comes up as the first link. So the first thing you want to do is, you'll notice on that left-hand side where it says demos and tools, it still gives you an option for UA and G4. You know, we've moved on from UA, and we're now at G4, so you'll want to definitely check off that GA4 option. It defaults to UA. Not a big deal if you forget to check this off. It's just, remember, there's more parameters in GA4 than what we had in UA, and those parameters will pop up on the screen for you to fill out. So then it's just a matter of filling out some fields, and it will automatically generate the URL with the parameters for you. So the first option you want to fill out is that root URL. So in this case, we did sandjack.edu. The next thing that we see there is campaign ID. I'm not using this one to associate with Google Ads, so I'm not going to use that one. So I have to use the campaign name, which is at the very bottom. You can see I've got that one in there. That next one was campaign source, newsletter, and then campaign medium is banner. So this is basically going to send data back to Google Analytics that says, hey, you have this campaign for spring that's running in as a banner inside of a newsletter that was clicked on. So it's kind of cool stuff when you think about it, how you can see all this data in Google Analytics. When you get down to the very bottom of the page, after you've entered in all this information, you'll see the URL. A very simple process. You can see it there. It worked it all out for you. You see the root, sandjack.edu with that question mark, and then add it in all the parameters for you. You can try to do this manually by hand, but save yourself the headache and just use a UTM builder. Okay, so when you're ready, you click on that little copy button, and that'll copy it to your clipboard, and then you can use it wherever you need to use it. You also see there at the bottom of this page, or the very, very bottom of the page, a way to shorten the URL. They work with Bitly, so it will take the generated URL and turn it into a Bitly URL. And that's good for if you were to provide this link on a printed piece, because the generated URL is not friendly at all. It'll turn it into a Bitly for your printed piece. What I've done in the past is I kind of shy away from using Bitly on printed pieces because it's really not branded. And we're living in a world now where it's so easy for QR codes. So I like to hide the generated URL behind QR codes on printed pieces. That can be debated. Everybody has their thoughts on that, but that just has really worked well for the schools that I have worked at, especially nowadays where QR codes are easy for folks. When QR codes first came out, they were kind of a little bit ahead of their time, where you had to download an app on your phone and all that good stuff. And then when COVID hit, everybody was using QR codes. The technology caught up with QR codes, and now it's just a matter of using your camera on your phone. So those are my thoughts on printed URLs, URLs using UTM parameters. Okay, once you've got that up and going, you've got the link within your email or your ad campaigns or within a postcard or whatever, it's going to start feeding that stuff into Google Analytics. So when you go into Google Analytics, I just did a screen capture here because I was afraid if I did it live, that would be the time that Google would take 5 minutes to show the page. What you'll do is once you log in, you'll go to your reports. That's that little where the number 1 is at. Then click on acquisition. Click on traffic acquisition. And then you're going to see just one column there. And you're able to, where that number 4 is at, you're going to be able to choose the option. And you want to choose session campaign. Next to this option is going to be a little blue button. I've already clicked on that blue button for you in the screen share. You'll click on the blue button and it'll open up another column for you, and you can choose sourcing medium. You can reverse those if you want, like if you just want a sourcing medium and then campaign, it's up to you. But I've always done session campaign and then source medium. And then you can see here how the information is pulling in. So we've got a campaign called HB8 that we're rolling in on Snapchat, which is the source, and it's a digital ad. So you can see the numbers there. We've got a whole bunch of numbers that we can play with now. We've got a campaign running for Promise on Snapchat as a video, and we've got that stuff coming in. We've got ads running on our iHeartMedia. You'll see this other stuff is organic and direct and none. That's where Google can capture that stuff. So that's what it looks like on the back end. You can also use this data within your Looker reports if you're familiar with using Looker. And I've got a Looker report that I've generated for our folks here that can filter everything down by campaign or source or medium so that they can easily dive into what they need to look at. And, with Looker reports, we can have lots of graphics and bar charts and pie charts and all that good stuff. So we have more control in Looker versus this. But if you're, used to Google Analytics, this is the quick and easy way to make that happen. I do those Looker reports for people that aren't used to Google Analytics or don't have access to our Google Analytics account, because those Looker reports, I have more control over the way they look and the way they feel and the way they handle. All right. That is pretty much it for UTMs. As you can see, they're very simple to do, but I've done them for years, and I wanted to kind of share best practices, things that I've learned, things where I've had those aha moments, and so I hope I can share some best practice with you. For the rest of the presentation, where you're like, aha, that's a good one, All right, so let's talk about best practices. Determine which campaigns warrant UTM parameters for tracking. Now, I've worked at a school before. Well, it was Blinn College. In 2016, I started working for Blinn, and I said, we need to be using UTMs. And they were like, what is that? Well, it's this thing that, it's part of the URL. It sends information to Google Analytics. And they said, what's Google Analytics? So what happens is when you start doing these UTMs, everybody and their mama wants a UTM. So determine which campaigns warrant the UTM. Now, the best thing about UTMs is, like I said before, how flexible they are. So you can use them to track your marketing spanning the entire customer journey, right? So the entire customer journey, you can use UTMs for that journey. So this can be within email campaigns, social media campaigns, digital ad campaigns, and those offline campaigns such as brochures and etc. Okay. Don't use UTM tags for internal links. The purpose of UTM codes is to track incoming site traffic coming from external sources like your social media profiles or promotional emails. That's why things get a little messy if we start tracking internal site links, such as how much traffic one news article has sent to a program page. You can get that information via Google Analytics. You don't need to set up a UTM for that. If you do a UTM for that, you're going to start getting double numbers because your page views and your page hits are going to be kind of matching up. So don't use UTM tags for internal links because you'll be sorry. All right, use a UTM parameter builder. What we talked about before, don't try to build them in your head. You'll save yourself a massive headache and a disaster waiting to happen. Okay. Naming conventions, consistency is key. Okay, the consistency of your naming conventions, it really can make or break your UTM strategy. Therefore, it's super important that you consider all of the possible descriptions within your various UTM parameters before you kick off that UTM process. Having just one inconsistent UTM parameter can just trash your data, making it more challenging for you to get a complete and accurate overview of how well your marketing is performing. This is especially important if you have like several members of your marketing team who are creating UTM tracking code. So you might have, and I've seen this at other schools, you might have one person that is using FB for Facebook and another person using Facebook for the source, and all of that's separate data according to Google. So you've got to kind of put all that stuff together, and it's just easier if you're consistent across the board. To make sure that everyone is on the same page, documentation is the key. So this means creating a master spreadsheet of all your UTM parameters with clear guidelines on what rules everyone needs to follow when creating custom campaign parameters. That's what we have in our office. We have a spreadsheet that we share. It's part of our overall campaign spreadsheet, and we've got a tab just for UTMs. And we've got different columns, and I suggest putting the column that will show like the start date of the campaign and the end date of the campaign, and other columns, any other guidelines that you need to share with the team. But when you have that that spreadsheet and somebody's creating the UTM, they can look at what was created in the past and see what has been done in the past to kind of keep things consistent. So, and it still happens, and but it's a lot. It doesn't happen as often in my experience when you have that spreadsheet that everybody's sharing. And then we talk about it. My next slide was using a spreadsheet to track your UTM links. So as you generate more content and marketing materials, each with its own UTM code, it really is easy to feel overwhelmed by the sheer number of links that we're tracking. Google Analytics provides a comprehensive overview of the data related to your links. So it's recommended to create a spreadsheet that's accessible. Google is even says we should create spreadsheets that's accessible to the entire team in effort to stay organized. All right. I have a rule, and I just have kind of carried it over from school to school, is to use lowercase only, because UTM codes, they are case sensitive. For example, Facebook Facebook and Facebook, all spelled, capital letters, are tracked separately within, that data gets tracked separately and is sent to Google Analytics. So you can see how all of a sudden you might, have a campaign with Facebook with just capital F. You're like, why are these numbers so low? It's because all those numbers are over at the Facebook all caps data. All right, so just use lowercase Facebook. Be easier said. I've worked at schools. I like to use dashes. And this should say dashes, I'm sorry. Dashes are better than spaces. Let's do this. Okay, dashes are better than spaces. I should delete the other slide. So dashes are better than spaces. I have worked at other schools where the convention was to use underscore or to use a percentage sign, or there have been other characters that you can use. But the key is just to be consistent. If you're going to use underscores, use them across the board. If you're going to use dashes across the board. If you were to use spaces, what gets returned back to Google Analytics is a %20. That is the, what is it called? Universal code something or other for a space. And so this can just get messy on your reporting. So it's just better to go ahead and put a dash or underscore, whatever the character is, just be consistent. So in this scenario, I would use spring dash semester. All right, keep it simple. While making your UTM codes as descriptive as possible, that might take more words than you want. It can result in fewer misunderstandings. It also increases the chances of someone making a mistake when creating those UTMs. UTM codes that are simple and easy to understand will always work best. So it's kind of this counterbalance thing. You want it to be descriptive, like say for source or your campaign parameters, you want it to be descriptive so you don't get confused. But if you start getting too descriptive, you're going to get confused anyway. So there's a delicate balance there, and I have always found that just keeping things purely simple works the best. And it goes back to really kind of having a consistent naming convention. And once that is set up, that's something that you can put on your spreadsheet. Once that is set up, stick with it. You don't want to ever change that, especially like mid-campaign, because then you've got two sets of data coming in. And you want to keep things as accurate as possible. Okay. Review your reports regularly. So rather than checking your reports at like the end of every month, or even worse, at the end of every quarter, you want to review your reports regularly in case a wonky UTM got stuck in there somehow. While having documentation for your naming convention dramatically reduces errors, typos still happen, right? Quickly determining that you've made a mistake gives you an opportunity to correct things before you move on. What you don't want to do is wait 3 months to start looking at your reports, then you find out something's wonky in there. Now you got to wait 3 more months for that data. So now you're 6 months down the road and your boss is like, where's my data? I need to know how this campaign is doing, and you've lost 6 months there. The data's still there, you can still play with it, but you might screw something up. All right, so check your UTM parameters when copying and pasting links. So did you know, like whenever you, like let's say you click on an ad and it takes you to the website, and you click on an ad or a link with an email or something, and it takes you to that web page, all those parameters are still in there. And if you copy and click that, and if you click and copy that and paste it into another source, like another email or something, all of a sudden that email or whatever, or wherever else you put it in, is starting to receive parameter data traffic in your Google Analytics account. And it's kind of giving, like I was telling this to Janet yesterday, my director, and she was saying it's kind of like giving credit where credit is not warranted, right? So you don't want that to happen. We might see this accidentally too. I have seen where our news folks that write our news articles, they will see something on social media, or maybe somebody sends them a link that they've captured from some campaign and includes those UTM parameters, they have included it in their stories. And now that article is getting that campaign information sent over to Google Analytics. So that kind of leads me into the next thing, is that I would suggest, and if you're a web developer, or maybe you need to ask your web developer to do this for you, but you can add scripting on your pages. You can add it across the entire website, or you can add it to just your landing page. A script that will, once the page loads and that data, those parameters is sent to Google Analytics, like 2 seconds or so, even less than that, the script will look to see if there's any parentheses and parameters in that URL, and it just removes it. So then if that person wants to copy that URL and use it in other platforms, they're not taking that UTM with, they're not taking that URL with the UTM parameters as part of a campaign and using it on some other resource that's sending campaign data over to Google Analytics. So, all right. Shorten your links for better user experiences. So we kind of talked about this before when I was showing you the tool to create the UTM codes. When you add the UTM codes to URLs, links, as we saw, can get very, very long, very, very quick. Good thing that we can now hide those parameters using that shortener. But I still think, like we talked about before, I still think that use the full URL with the UTM and hide it behind a QR code for printed material, or hide it behind a link in the email. Or I'm just not a big fan of the shortened links, but it's an option. Okay. All right. Don't add UTM parameters to redirect URLs. When I started working here at Sanjak, we had a ton of vanity URLs or short URLs, and it just seemed like everybody and their mama wanted a short URL, even when the URL was short. It was a thing here, and then we started adding UTM parameters to that, and it was hard for me to capture that data, because what happens is you've got a redirect URL, right? You attach those UTM parameters onto that URL, you start using it for your campaigns. Somebody clicks on it, guess what? It gets redirected. The UTM parameters don't go with it. So I've lost that data, right? It may not happen every time, because I think some browsers will bring that over, but some browsers don't. So I think it's just a best case scenario to never add UTM parameters to a URL that you're redirecting to another page. And we already talked about this. I don't know why it's still here, but don't use UTMs on internal links. But do use UTMs on Google Ads when hybrid tagging with both UTM and GCL ID tags. That's the Google Ad campaign tags. And we've kind of already talked about this as well. So Google Ads integrates well with GA out of the box. This performance data in your AdWords account is automatically available in your analytics account. But GA also allows you to use both UTMs and GCLIDs to make manual object. However, you have to ensure that it's correctly. And basically, it's auto tagging with manual tagging. You probably don't have to do that. You just have to be sure, if you're working with a agency and they're using Google Ads, that they have that setting set up. Most of the time that is set up if you provide them with the URL that includes a UTM parameter. All right, how about questions? I'm not a big presenter on like, here's the information. I was telling Jonathan this before we started. I'm not the type of presenter who's like, here's everything I know. Have a great day. See you later. You know, I like some feedback and maybe some questions from you. I'm also listed my LinkedIn account and my website for y'all here.
Thank you, David. We appreciate it. And I just wanted to open the floor in case anybody had any questions. I know that there's been some kind of back and forth in the chat. People were mainly trying to understand where there might be a shortened URL and QR code generator, and we got lots of different suggestions for that. So that's good. Just wanted to Sorry, somebody was at my desk. Just wanted to open the floor, give a second. Anybody have any questions?
Getting back to the short URLs, I think that's always up for debate, those bit.ly short URLs. I'm not a big fan of them, but some people are. So yeah, I'm not sure, I can't see the chat, but basically that Google URL generator at the very bottom, once that URL is created with the UTM parameters, you can check off that you want a bit.ly link, and that'll do it for you.
And I just wanted to say, David, that UTM parameters have been a real game changer, especially for printed marketing, because for the longest time, it would be sometimes things would go out in the ether, and it wasn't like the old days where you used to have a printed ad in a magazine and you'd turn in a card and circle what you were interested in. And now it's just great to see, where our advertising can have an effect and what's driving people to specific topics on the website and things like that. And to be able to really understand the ROI of advertising is phenomenal. So this is a really easy way to do that. And I appreciate that you took everybody kind of step by step through it.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's a complicated, simple process. That's the best way I can describe it.
All right. So one last chance. Any questions? I'm going to.
I hope to see y'all at the conference in Austin in June. If y'all haven't ever been to Austin, my story is I was born and raised in Corpus Christi, but when I moved to Austin when I was 18, I grew up in Austin. So if you've never been to Austin, reach out to me and I can show you, share with you some things to do in Austin that aren't so touristy, that the locals do, the fun stuff.
Yeah, great. We'll look forward to that. And being at the conference in June. Again, a reminder, registration and hotel bookings are now open. Go to TACCM.org if you want to go ahead and register and book your hotel for the conference. So with that, I guess we'll go ahead and conclude. Jonathan, did you want to add anything before we go?
No, great job, both of y'all. Appreciate it. And look forward to seeing y'all. The next Lunch and Learn will be on the 24th. Terminal 4's CEO will actually be talking about AI and how it can be used in higher ed marketing. So we had last semester, we had someone come and talk about AI just in general, marketing using ChatGPT, but they'll be talking largely how we can be more efficient with AI in higher ed marketing. And they actually gave this performance at High Ed Web, and it was one of the top ranked presentations. So looking forward to him coming and sharing with us a little bit later this month. But otherwise, thanks everybody for joining us.
Sounds awesome. Thanks, Jonathan. Thanks, David.
Thanks, David.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
See you later.